Tell us just a little bit about Toby Press, what you have done and what the goals are going forward.
So the Toby Press is an imprint of Koren publishers, which of course is probably well known to many of our listeners. Koren has a number of different imprints, including Magid books, which are books of Jewish thought, and Toby Press, which are works of modern literature, although largely Hebrew literature in translation. And the publisher, Mr. Matthew Miller of Jerusalem, who himself is a great lover of Agnon and classic Hebrew literature, had this idea to put out revised and new editions of Agnon in translation. And I came on as the series editor of that project. The project grew in the making. When we started, we thought it was going to be 5 volumes or 7 volumes. In the end, it was 15 volumes. At the moment, the project is complete, although we did not translate all of Agnon's writings into English. What we did was we took the most important stories that had not yet been translated. The history of Agnon translation is a story that has not yet been fully told. Agnon was already being translated into European languages and into English very early on. I think the earliest Agnon translations were taking place in the early 1920s. Agnon's publisher, Shlomo Zalman Schocken of the Schocken Press, who controls the rights to Agnon's writings in Hebrew until this day, Schocken understood that in order to have a world-class author, a kind of author that some committee in Stockholm might pay attention to, you cannot leave him untranslated in Hebrew, because no one will know he exists. Remember, the choice to write in Hebrew, which Agnon makes at the age of 20 in 1908, was very curious, because in the 19-teens and 20s and 30s, there were many, many, many millions more readers in Yiddish than there were in Hebrew. Economically, it made absolutely no sense. You can only understand it as an ideological decision to become a Hebrew writer. Financially, it made no sense. I mean, just the amount of Yiddish writing that was going on. Unfortunately, now we don't read much of that Yiddish literature, neither in the original, because so few of us can read Yiddish, or in translation. We know, the Tevye stories of Shalom Aleichem and a few other things. In the end, it was a safer bet to go with Hebrew literature, but at the time, it didn't make any sense. And Schocken understood that in order to become a world-class writer, you have to have translations, and he financed many of those early translations. But some of Agnon's most important works had not been translated to English until our series. And frankly, some stories that nobody paid much attention to when they came out, and which are largely forgotten in Hebrew today, were translated decades ago. There was no kind of plan for what got translated, when. So what we did was we collected up the existing translations and we revised them. And then we commissioned new translations of the most significant untranslated works and put them out. And our editions all have some kind of ancillary material, a new forward, a new afterword, in very many cases, annotations, illustrated annotations that fill in that kind of source work and referencing to the classical sources, to the rabbinic sources, to historical realia that he's making mention of, that frankly no reader in Hebrew today would necessarily know unless they happen to be a professor of that particular moment in history. So our volumes have that kind of scholarly apparatus that fill in those blanks. But that material is in the back of the book because you're meant to encounter the literary text itself, unadulterated and unadorned, and to immerse yourself into it. And if you have a question, then you can look up something in the reference material elsewhere in the volume. At the moment, the series it's been completed now already for a few years. After we completed that list of the most important untranslated works, so then the things that were lower down on the list now have moved up, and there are other things that I think, I'd like to undertake, and it could be in time we'll come back and put out another volume or two of new materials.
This has been fascinating. We can go on, but unfortunately, time, I believe, is up. And, first of all, thank you very, very much, Rabbi Sachs. We encourage all our visitors and listeners to explore the world of Shai Agnon, to buy the books, whether it's in the original, if you can do it, or obviously in the translated. And Rabbi Sachs mentioned the Shai Agnon house, which I believe is down the block from the American Embassy.
Yes. Well, we say the American Embassy is down the block from us because we got there first.
American Embassy is down the block from the Shai Agnon.
Next time you have to come to renew your passport, you can come in to visit the Agnon house. You can find us online at agnonhouse.org.il. The visiting hours, you don't need to make an appointment when the house is open. You can come and do the self-guided tour. It's worth the visit. And of course, you can find the catalog of the Toby Press books on their website. And the books themselves, of course, available in most of the chain bookstores here in Israel, at least, or on Amazon. You can find them.
Okay. Thank you again very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.